Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. I understand that traffic is pretty bad. Probably took some of you a while to get here, but we do have to finish around 7. So we'll go ahead and get started. When other people come in, they can join in the conversation, etc. So we just want to go over a few things. Unfortunately, I don't have a clicker tonight. My name is John Finnegan. I'm a construction program manager with ACPS Facilities. The purpose of this meeting is to come back and get a little community input on usage and timeframes. A lot of you have been to these meetings. You've been apprised of what's going on, where we are in the process. We are in the process of continuing to make submissions to the city. But one thing that we're trying to hone in on is usage and talk about what the facilities will be used for, the different kinds of uses, ACPS versus community, et cetera. Here's our agenda tonight. Again, it's not a long meeting, and really it's to get some feedback from you, which we will then take back to the design team, and we will, take that and it's an iterative process. So we'll take the information that we get from you. We're going to break up into small groups here in a little bit, get some feedback. We'll take that back to the design team and start formulating the ideas and some parameters, et cetera. Okay, so first of all, this stadium project, we're hoping to get our processes through the city over the next few months. As I mentioned, it's kind of an iterative process. We'll have to go to Planning Commission, City Council. Meanwhile, we do continue to design. We are in design development. We are not on construction documents yet. That's kind of the next step, and that alone will take a couple of months. So we continue to finish the plan, get construction documents, get specifications, et cetera, while we're working through some of these issues. So basically, kind of what we were thinking is we don't want to get too narrow yet because we've got some ideas of the uses and the timeframes, but we wanted the community input. So right now, obviously, we have several sports that use the facilities, but we also have Mini Howard up the street. So what we would look to do, again, is a lot of the same uses, just the times would switch a little bit. Football, currently varsity and the freshman JV team use the facility. Obviously, if lights are allowed, then that will allow us to use it on Friday nights. It allow us to use it later into the evening, et cetera. And when we break into the small groups, we can talk a little bit about time frames on how late things should go, when things should shut down, et cetera, the sound system, the lighting. Also, soccer, that's another sport that will use it, and track and field. Right now, there are a couple of track and field events that happen throughout the year, and it's possible with a renovated stadium, new surface, et cetera, and the 8th lane that we're incorporating into this, that we may be able to host some metro meets or things along those lines, state meets, et cetera. So that's all a possibility. So there's also band practice. They use the field a little bit right now. Unfortunately, a lot of times they actually go and practice on top of the parking garage. So with lights and things being pushed around and allowing more usage throughout the day and into the evening, there may be a few more time slots for some of these other uses. So that's kind of what we are thinking for it would be used for. We are not looking at using it for lacrosse, et cetera, because Mini Howard is used for that. So that is pretty much the outline. Now, we will, as we go through the process, have to get into a little bit more details on practices. The varsity practices there, the JV may have to practice elsewhere, or they can coordinate, et cetera, depending on the particular time of year because of nightfall and whether lights are allowed, et cetera. And obviously, if we have lights, then we would look to have games on Friday nights like the rest of the high schools in the area. Community uses. So basically what we are trying to do is anything outside of ACPS use, we would require to get ACPS approval. So that will be the case no matter what. So any community groups that want to use a facility will have to go through an ACPS approval process, give us information on when they want it, how many people, what they're using it for, et cetera, and that will have to be approved. This is not an RPCA facility through the city, as are some of our other facilities, joint facilities between RPCA and the school system. So some of those other facilities, community groups go to RPCA for approval. Here, everything will come through us, no matter what, any type of uses. So that is something that we will look into getting a little bit more information on, what you guys think is appropriate. If groups come and start playing on there, they do not have a permit, because coming through our process, we'll get them a permit. So if guys show up and start playing football, that's one thing. If they try and have more organized situation and not a permit, we will kick them off of the facilities. So everything really needs to be permitted. And of course, any of those permits will have to work around the ACPS uses, because that is our priority, obviously, is getting the students their practices and games on this facility.
Can I ask you a question about the community uses?
Sure.
Will the rec department be allowed to use it for community uses?
Yes, that is another consideration, and we have been working with the rec department on that. But again, that will be somewhat limited, because there's going to be, we have a lot of sports that want to use that, limited hours, et cetera, and that is our priority. So if rec wants to use it for something, again, they have to come to us, ask, and it will go through the same approval process.
And will there be some sort of time limits on rec department use?
Well, we will get into that, but yes, we will start getting some overarching themes of times, et cetera. So no matter what it is, whatever the use is, there will be, for example, if we have Friday night football games, we would say that the lights would be turned off at such and such time, the sound system such and such, et cetera. Okay, so yes, basically we will be looking to create some overarching themes. So no matter what the use is, we would try and cut off at a certain time. We don't want to limit ourselves too much, but we're kind of talking about, after a football game, maybe the lights should be turned off within a certain amount of time after the game ends to allow people to get out, but the sound system can be turned off a little earlier, et cetera. So those are the types of things that we still have to work through.
Can I just ask another question?
Sure.
Because you said that you would have control over this field and you would be limiting it through a permitting process. And I'm wondering, there's no control at this point over the use of this field. So I'm wondering how you will be controlling the use of that permit. That is, any group can walk onto this field at any time and use it without any permit, because it's not a locked field and you are not intending to lock it, is my understanding. So how are you going to police that?
Well, first of all, it is for community use as well. So the community use will take a back seat to school uses. So if there's a school use and there are people on there, we will have them removed so that we can conduct whatever school functions we need to. So the school uses are the number one priority. For community uses, it is not a closed facility. There is a community use that is allowed here and that we want to remain. So people can walk up and use the track. People can walk up and play on the field, but if there's an organized game, we are asking everybody has to go through a permitting process, and we are still vetting that process.
But that is my question. Currently there is a permitting process, but it is not followed in any way. So my question is, what are you making plans to make some way to enforce it? Because the truth is, no one knows who's on that field at any time of the day or night, right now.
I'm sorry, no one what?
No one knows who is using
Oh.
that field at this time.
Okay.
Other than school. The school uses it, but at other times, lots of groups use the field, and they are not community groups. And I'm wondering how you are going to control it in the future.
Well, some of those groups may have gone through the process and gotten a permit. We get calls all the time. I'm sorry?
We have to stop them and ask them.
Okay,
We do not have permits.
okay, and that doesn't surprise me.
I know.
So part of this,
But my question is, the future, how are you going to control it?
okay, and that's what we're still working on. We're still working on how much we bring security around to monitor the fields, how much we use school staff to keep an eye on and take walks out there, et cetera.
Thank you.
But they wouldn't have access to the lights, so they can turn the lights on or
Correct.
anything like that. That would be different.
Correct. We will not give access to lights and sound system.
So you're actually
No. I'm sorry? Mhm. Right. Yes, there is a process now, and we are working on how we are going to do that and enforce it better here. But yes, there will be an approval process, and we do not anticipate just wide sweeping use because again, sure, but okay,
The soccer people said
we will have a time for community input.
365 nights a year, that's what they said.
Okay,
Let
well,
them finish.
thank you.
Yes. All right,
We're arguing
Right.
a point here, and this
all right,
point is very important to us.
all right, all right. We recognize that. We just want to make sure, we do have a Q&A period on the agenda. I would ask that you allow them to sort of get through a little bit of the presentation first, and we're also going to put you in the groups so we can get this feedback in a more organized way. But if you could hold your questions until we get to the Q&A, that would be probably a better way for us to sort of organize. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so what we want to do is to break off into small groups where you can tell us some of your concerns, what you think uses should be, what some of the timeframes could be. And as I mentioned, we will take that back to the design team and we will continue to finalize things, et cetera. So I'm not taking any questions right now, thank you. So what we'll do is we'll break up into groups and we will ask you for your input. And I'm going to go ahead, once we get into these groups, since it's a little smaller tonight than we've had in the past, we're going to go ahead and do both at once. So basically, if we'll get into some groups and we'll take 6 people here and there, just turn around and talk to your neighbors. We're going to give you some sheets here and write down what you think are appropriate uses, what your concerns with uses are, and then what your concerns with time frames, et cetera, are. Let's do the uses first, but stay in your groups, and then we will make it an iterative process. I'll ask for the feedback. You will have chances to take a microphone and give us some of the results from your discussions. So we will do that now. Excuse me, everyone, I just wanted to be clear also. The whole idea of this is to get some input from the community. We're trying to make this an iterative process. So I just want to make sure that you guys are giving us some of your ideas. We're not here to answer all of the questions. We're here to get input to help design this and help to create the parameters of it. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is give us your input, tell us your concerns, your hopes, et cetera, and that will help in the process as we continue down the road. Thank you. Okay, folks, let's finish up and we will start discussing. Okay, so first of all, we want to talk a little bit about the uses, what you felt was appropriate, what your concerns are, et cetera. So we do have an extra microphone. We will ask maybe one person from the group to give a little rundown, highlights of what your group discussed. So yeah, we can start over here.
Yeah, I'm the spokesman for this table here. The first question I would like to ask I can talk loudly. Oh, sorry, thank you. Is it on now? Okay. The first question I would like to ask you is, the neighborhood actually has a formal DSUP preventing lights on the field at T.C. Williams and any lights anywhere on the facilities at T.C. Williams. Tennis court lights have been built. It's obvious that you're going to build lights now on the stadium. So why should we pay any attention to anything that you're telling us, because you're completely ignoring a contractual agreement between the community and the school people? So that's a general point. A second point that I have is, what will be the time limits on the use of lights by others and also by T.C. Williams Athletics. My second question is, who will be allowed to use the fields? And what are the time limits on the lights during field usage? I have other questions. Why is a Maryland semi-pro football team playing on the T.C. Williams High School football field? Why is Lake Braddock High School having football camp on that field? Why does Potomac Valley Track Club and Track and Field Club have meets at T.C. Williams High School? Why do you allow anybody, for example, trainers, to use the facility without permits? Why does FatFit have access to the field with 50 to 75 people playing music at God knows what hours? Why were there football tryouts for DC travel football on that field without permits? How will you control fireworks usage on the field? Will the field be locked? Military units have been working out on the field. How is that controlled? How will the city compensate the contingent homeowners for the loss of the value of their properties because of the construction of the lights on the field and consequent reduction in the value of their property? And finally, I'd like to know what the height of the lights will be. Not only the height of the light stands, but also the height of the entire structures that will be built, and whether or not that's within the current city codes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me touch upon a couple of those. A lot of questions, and really what we're trying to do is get more input from you guys. But let me touch upon a couple of those. Currently, our plans that are submitted to the city go up, the lights are up at... Yes. Currently, the plans that we have submitted to the city, the lights are at 60 feet. And I believe the question was, what does that all include? That includes everything. It includes the base, the pole, the lights, the appurtenances, everything. So that is from the ground, 60 feet up. Nothing is supposed to be over that per ordinance. And that is what is currently shown on the plans that have been submitted to the city. So,
Will you actually follow those plans, or will you ask for a mulligan from the city for making 100, 200, 300?
as we mentioned in the last community meeting, that's what the plans are. That's what we're bound to right now. We have discussed with the city what it would take to try and get an increase in that height of the lights. Correct. Okay. So who's going to be using it? I mean, that's why we're here, is to talk about that. That's why I want you guys to tell me your concerns. We have not made any determinations on that thing. I keep saying this is an iterative process. The whole point is community input. We're not just saying this is the way it is. We're asking for input here. We will take that back to the design team. We will take that back to ACPS, superintendent, COO, et cetera, the board. That is kind of the point here. So that's what we're looking for from you guys. Why do certain groups use it right now? I can't answer all of those things. But what we're trying to do is get this under control. We're trying to, we may even change the accessibility of it a little bit because we've had issues with people jumping fences, et cetera. Community residents have given us their concerns about what happens with students behind the concession stands. You know, we're looking at motion detector lights. We're looking at 10-foot fences. We're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at bringing security around more. We're looking at bringing staff by more, making rounds throughout the day and checking in on those and doing a check mark on a box, et cetera. So we are looking at trying to control things better than they are controlled now. And we understand that's a community concern. We appreciate that. And that's why we're looking into all of these things. Why some of those groups use it, I'm not sure. We're trying to also improve the permitting process because we're trying to have more control over this facility than we do at some of the other facilities because some of those are joint facilities. But again, we are a public institution. There is going to be some community use. We are not going to padlock this and keep it locked up all the time. If people want to walk up and use the track, we are for that. If people want to come and use the field, that's okay, unless we have an ACPS use going on there. However, organized events, et cetera, yes, we will make them come get a permit, and that's another thing that we have to talk about, how we enforce that. That was brought up by this group, and we will get to that. That is a concern. Sir, as I've said, I have not created definitions. I have not created special groups, uses. That's why we're looking for this input, so we can come to that together. So that becomes a slippery slope, though, because if somebody asks for a permit and we say okay, and then a group that's closer comes and says, well, now we want to use it, it's hard to take that away. I mean, that's all stuff that we have to work through.
Doesn't logic dictate that only residents of the city of Alexandria, who are the taxpayers who are paying for the destruction of the property or the degradation of the field, only Alexandria city residents ought to be allowed to use that facility? Why are people from all over the region able to use a facility that I'm paying for with my tax dollars?
I
Say community, can you define community as Alexandria city residents or the world? Which is it? Can you give me a specific answer to that?
I cannot give a specific answer to that. That's something that I will take back when we will work through. We have noted it, so thank you very much. I see a couple other hands. Actually, we're getting close on time, so let's go to another group. This one right here, if we could have your spokesperson.
Just real quick on that question about who the community is. I mean, for what it's worth right now, a lot of other communities are subsidizing us because we don't have the fields. So we go to Fairfax and use their fields for our track meets and things like that. And so, in fact, all of those people are currently subsidizing us. This would just be a little,
Good point.
but, and I won't hold everyone in my group responsible for what I'm going to say, but a couple things. I think the track meets are one of the groups that come in, and so I think very clearly any track meet that's going to be should have a permit. There shouldn't be any kind of pickup track meet. That anyone who is using the lights at all, if there are lights, would have to have a permit. So there would be no pickup, no just anybody could walk on and have access to lights. It's going to be very regulated. One of my concerns is not to reduce the current community access for people that want to run on the track or little pickup games during, daylight hours, those kinds of things. Not a big organized group, but just, that we not reduce any access to our fields because we have, recently opened up Hammond, Minnie Howard made those available for people to go shoot their balls, whatever, just on their own time. So I don't want to lose any of that by all of our clamping down. But I think that's what they currently have. As long as they don't have access to the lights, we wouldn't be expanding that at all. Anything else you think you want to
Okay, thank you. And Elijah Gross with the Facilities Department is taking some notes. So what you guys are saying, we are getting it, as well as we will collect your sheets afterwards so that we can keep that stuff with us. We'll go to this group.
So are we talking about, if we're talking about appropriate uses for the field, our group felt that only Alexandria-specific community groups should be allowed to use the field, other than, of course, T.C. Williams. And we think T.C. Williams students should always have first shot at their own field. Some of our concerns, and you've heard a lot from other people, we are neighbors to the field. We hear those guns go off for every track meet, scare many of us to death until we figure out what it is. So at least advance notice, if you're doing those sorts of things, would be very, very helpful. Your principal this year made a concerted effort to inform us of when things were going. He wasn't always able to do that. We really appreciate that, because living right there and having guns go off at 7 o'clock in the morning is tough. We are very concerned about the hours of use. We believe there is no control on this field at this time. We have complained about it for years and years. I don't know how you're going to control a field that isn't locked. It might be worth noting that every high school in Fairfax County locks their fields, and only people with permits are allowed to use them besides the schools themselves. We don't believe that outside groups, such as Mr. Johnson mentioned, should be allowed to be on this field at all. You have a lot of outside groups right now. Football teams from Prince George's and DC come in and use this field because they know it is easy access, and no one is watching this field on weekends except the neighbors. We think that all uses should be consistent with the fact that this field is too close to neighbors. It was shoehorned in, and there was a promise made to neighbors who lost their homes to this school in 1963 to 65 that they would never light the field because the proximity is way too close, the field is too small, and the space around the field is too small. You are now talking about breaking that promise, and you are talking about putting lights. When you just said to us the lights, which you asked for in permitting, is 60 feet, I believe you're right, that's true, except your own communications person, Helen Lloyd, is telling people that the lights will be 80 to 90 feet. If she's telling people that, she must have some insider information that the rest of us do not have. We'd kind of like to know that instead of have you sit here and tell us it's one thing when it's going to be another. We are concerned about the noise. There's already a lot of noise. We're concerned there will be an increase in noise because you are really talking about having this field lit every single night of the year. We're concerned about the glare of the lights. We have a completely dark neighborhood, and if you walk on that field after dark at night, there are no lights. There are no lights in any neighborhoods around there except what come out of house windows. We don't even have working street lights in some of the streets that are right immediately around it. Now you are talking about lights that'll be on till 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I don't believe you can control the permitting process for those lights. I see around here that you can't control other kinds of lights that are on, so I don't know why you would think, if you can't control who's on the field, I don't believe you're going to get those lights turned off at your leisure. We are concerned about traffic issues. Anybody who drove here tonight, there's a major traffic issue out there, has nothing to do with this school or even our neighborhood, but traffic is a problem, and the more events you have here, the more traffic that's going to be thrown onto these streets. They are already bogged down. In the morning, those of us who live here can hardly get off our streets because of the traffic. Not T.C. Williams' fault, but there's a lot of traffic already. The more events you have on this field, the more traffic we all have to deal with. Some of you like to go home at night, and you may not be able, you might be facing that. We are concerned about the hours of operation. I already hear you saying that the band could be practicing late at night. You know, I live here. I hear that. You don't live here. You don't hear it. And we are very concerned about the impact that a lit field with all kinds of hours of operation that at this point you have never controlled the use of, what that's going to do to our neighborhoods and how we're going to have to live with that. You all don't have to live with that. When people talk about students deserving lights, which was in the newspaper, I'd like you to think about what the residents and the taxpayers deserve also.
Thank you. And so there was a lot there, and some of it is repetitive of what some of the other people have said, but just want to touch upon a couple of things. Helen Lloyd, our communications director, is in the same meetings as I don't know what misinformation's out there, but Helen is very aware of what the lights currently are, and it's the same message that I'm giving. Right now, what we have submitted to the city is at 60 feet. No part of the lights go over that. It's not a 60-foot pole with lights on top of it. The top of anything is 60 feet. That's what we are allowed to do. We have inquired with the city what it would take to go higher. And then, okay. Because you talked about glare and some of those things, and the technology has come a long way. And I'm not going to get into all that now. A few months ago, we had a community meeting where we specifically touched upon this, and we had the experts there saying if you went higher, it would be better for the outside properties. So right now, we would meet with 60-foot poles. We would meet ordinance at the property line. We would have very little spillage right at the property line onto the neighbors' properties. We meet the ordinance. If we went higher, what we would take away would be the glare. So it's what you would see in the distance, like you would see a car lights in the distance. Those car lights might not reach your property line, but you can see that glare. That's what going higher would do, because it would allow us to direct the light down, shield it, et cetera, direct it right where we want it. So that's why we're exploring that possibility. Right now, the glare isn't even that bad. We meet that as well. It's just that we're trying to get an optimal lighting for, everyone keeps saying it's a small space. Well, technology now has allowed us to concentrate the lighting on those smaller spaces without a lot of overspill. Let's go to this group over here, please.
Okay, so we concentrated on what uses we thought should be at the field. And so being the only public high school in Alexandria, we think it should have and be able to support all ACPS activities with lights off at 10 for those. We think it should also be able to, things such as sports and senior nights and those type of activities. It should also support the rec department, but those sports only during the day. No practices Monday through Friday because TC is going to need the fields anyway. And it should also support some of the Alexandria affiliated leagues, but no lights for those.
Thank you very much. I believe we have this group.
We just had a couple things, and most of them were echoing. We think the first thing you ought to take back is to define the parameters, the hours of operation for this. That ought to be the first thing. In other words, no use under any circumstances past X hour, no use before X hour, so that you get a box that you have to operate all the uses inside of. So the hours of operation ought to be the very first thing that you do before you start filling it in. For example, 10 o'clock on a school night or a weeknight for lights on in a neighborhood like this is, to me, out of the question. That's not right. So you have to decide of what those hours and the parameters of use first before you start filling in who uses it. And then we had a concern about what ACPS use, the world of ACPS, is that all schools, all ACPS, and if that's so, everyone should be aware of all of the people who could potentially be petitioning to use the field, and will it fit in the box reasonably of the hours of use that you draw. So that'd be the one point we make.
Thank you.
Oh, and we think sound and lights ought to be possibly two different issues. Lights potentially later than sound, again, for the neighborhood.
Okay.
To think about. Amplified sound.
Understood, thank you. So just to touch upon that, because that has been a concern with a couple of the groups. You heard us talk a little bit about lighting and the glare, et cetera. One thing that we were kind of considering is, much to this point, is time frames. And we know that it's sensitive and people are worried that lights are going to be on all the time, et cetera. As you know, a big driver of this is because we're the only high school in the area that doesn't have Friday games. We have to play them on Saturday, we have to use other people's fields, et cetera. So instead of the hard shutoff, one thing that we were considering is, do we say something along the lines of, it's a Friday night game and they're usually over by 10 o'clock, what if it goes a little long, what if it goes into overtime? Instead of saying there's a hard 10 o'clock shutoff, maybe we say 5 minutes after the game ends, the sound system has to be off. 20 minutes after the game ends, the lights have to be off. The field lights. We would keep pedestrian lights off until everyone exited. But that's the type of thing that we're looking at. So we don't box it in too much, but yet we're sensitive to the neighbors. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
We didn't want the football profile to fit the rest of the year.
Understood. Right, and then in line with that, for lighting and sound, since those are a couple of the bigger concerns, the track meets. I believe there's one, someone mentioned it, that's yearly here. And that starts in the morning and it's usually over mid-afternoon. That's not a concern, but they use the sound system. We would be everything has to come through ACPS, so we'll work on that language, but we would be very restrictive on who can use the lights and the sound. So if somebody asks for a permit for, some men's touch football or flag football or something, we'll say you can use the field, but you can't use the lights and you can't use the sound system. You don't need that. So it would be a large community type, respectable organization, et cetera, And that's the type of stuff we're looking for a little feedback. So that's kind of where we're going with this and what we're thinking. Obviously, we've got more to do, but that's why we wanted this input from you guys. So I've got 1 second. Let me have this lady here.
How we are impacted. And when I say we are, just let me tell you this. 3330 was my husband's family address, okay? All of this property here, where the school is, we were put off of the property from Quaker Lane down to Chinquapin. That belonged to our community. When the school came in, they wanted a school. The only place that they could find to put a school, of course, before the Civil Rights Act was passed, was right here in the center of our African American community. At that time, they downsized our community from, say, like 50 homes to, I think we have like 30 in the cul-de-sac here. You promised at that time you would not put any lights on any field because of the way it would negatively impact our quality of life. So we've been living that way, said, okay, and we have put up with constant noise, and this is without lights, constant noise, traffic, kids jumping across fence. I won't tell you what everything the kids have been doing, but we have had to put up with this for the last, 53 years? After all of that, you have the audacity, the gall, to come back to the same community and impose on us again. And all this crap that you're saying, that you're going to do this, and we don't believe any of it, because now you're talking about breaking a legal document that you signed. And a lot of you are saying, well, you know, I believe that the kids should play, that there should be a field for the kids to play football and everything else on. But the kids are impacted for 4 years. We are impacted for a lifetime. All right, this group may leave, but we will still be here. Now, our property value is going to be decreased, but guess what? The city has just raised the real estate taxes. So, and we're supposed to be fine with this without getting any compromises at all, anything that we can believe. If you're not going to have a city stadium, why don't you go someplace else to have it? There's other property in Alexandria that's not sitting in someone else's backyard. We are right there at the boundary line where every sound that is outside, we can hear. I mean, that's why, you know, we're saying, what are you all doing? Don't you care about your citizens? You know, we've been here for what? Most of us have been here. Our ancestors were here right after the Civil War. And we've tried to stay in, and we are not, low income. We are not, you know, the housing, Section 8, we're homeowners. And you're treating us like we're nothing.
Thank you.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Carol.
That's right.
Carol.
Everything you said is right.
So thank you for your input, and that's why we're making this an iterative process, because we understand your concerns with kids jumping the fence, the lights, et cetera. But as I mentioned already, the technology has come a long way. We're trying to put in lights that 5 years ago would have impacted you more than they were today. We're also looking at fencing, et cetera, other things to keep the kids away from your property. And it's been mentioned in other meetings, there's also been a proposal, the board, I believe, has already approved it, for a wall in that area, a brick wall. That's another thing we're looking at. So I would encourage you to work with us on this. I understand all of the concerns, but if you work with us, then we can help do some designs that would minimize some of those impacts. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I actually think I know, but I'm not sure. When outside groups, whoever they may be, Park Rec, whoever, do they pay and they get a permit to use the field? Do they have to pay for that?
Theoretically. In reality, no.
I don't believe so. That's city, right, separate. Okay, that's how the city does it.
Permit, hourly based, you put up the money 3 months before you're actually gonna use the field.
Okay, so that's for the city. We'll get back to you on exactly what our parameters are. A couple more, folks, because we are already over time.
Real quick, can I ask this real quick? What is the cost-benefit analysis, based on his comment, okay, in regarding their fees that are collected for the use of the field, and what it is costing the citizens, not only for the, a bit specifically for the lights, because we know the field needs to be re-energized, we know about the stadium itself and other fixer-uppers that need to be done. So let's just look at what is the cost-benefit analysis of having those lights, us being able to recoup that through the charge of permits.
Right, and that is something that we are looking at on why we would allow track meets and some of those things, because there could be a small revenue generator. We have not conducted any type of cost-benefit analysis because again, the main point of this is for the students, and we're not obviously charging for that. It's a benefit that comes with the school. Yes, sir.
You say that the benefit is for the students, and I find it hard to believe that we want to prioritize. I'm all for sports. I played sports growing up, and it was a great part of my life. But I find it hard to believe that we want to prioritize breaking a promise, stadium lights, and all this expense when we have a 10-year budget that doesn't provide enough seats for the students that ACPS projects that we're going to have in this town. Like, I don't understand how that does not match the statement that you just made, that we're doing this for the students, in my mind.
Okay, thank you. Got another one over
You
here?
mentioned to us, I wanted to follow up on this woman's question about cost-benefit analysis. You mentioned to us that one of the drivers for lights on T.C. Williams High School was Friday night lights. Why not simply, for the 6 or 8 games or however many games they have per year at home, why not simply rent lights and put them up and take them away that evening? They did that several years ago. I'm sure it cost a good deal less than the millions and millions of dollars you're going to invest. Also, the new stadium's going to have a press box, and I'm interested in T.C. Williams High School sports. My kids played there, I look in the Washington Post, and I never see anybody from the press reporting hardly anything that goes on at T.C. Williams High School sports. Why on earth are we spending taxpayer dollars for a press box when there's no press there? And if there was a reporter, there were guys who were sort of freelance reporters who sit in the stadium and make some notes and email it off to the Post. Why on earth am I spending my tax dollars on a press box? I mean, it's ridiculous.
So
I mean, it really is. There's a level of absurdity to this whole function, from destroying property values, breaking DSUPs. You're telling us the 60-foot lights will not have scatter, but nobody is mentioning that light bounces off of surfaces, reflects off the sky, and projects into people's bedrooms. I mean, there's so much disingenuousness in this entire process that, the city residents are really, really tired of this. We have the meeting, we give our opinions, we fill out the forms, we come to the forums, blah, 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 and everything, all of our input is totally and utterly ignored by the city. And I wonder why that is. I'm a taxpayer in this city, and I pay a ton of taxes to this city, and what I get in return is reduction in my property values, noise, traffic, and a destruction of the quality of my life. And I've heard people say, well, you shouldn't have moved near T.C. Williams High School if you felt that way. Well, I lived there before there was a T.C. Williams High School. Okay, and many of us are in exactly the same boat. The Woods Avenue community has been here for decades, for 50, 60, 100 years, and they have been treated like dirt by this city. And
Okay.
we are really, really angry about that. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Folks, we are running late. Let me just touch upon a couple of things real quick. Press box, we can't control what the Washington Post is going to cover. I'm sure that the school newspaper is covering it. But the press box isn't just for that. It's also for the coaches. They're up there with cameras recording the games so they can utilize that with their game preparation, they're teaching the kids, et cetera. So there are a couple of uses and points to the press box. And that's a small component of the stadium. Again, the technology is much better. We had the experts talk about that. The city is making us show all the computations. We're showing it along the property lines. Those computations don't just include the field light. It includes the pedestrian lights. It includes the lights on the buildings, et cetera. All of that is shown. We meet the ordinance on all of that. So again, we had Musco here to explain all of that type of stuff. If you have more concerns, please talk to me afterwards. We will probably have Musco back again at some point to talk about this stuff again. I'm sorry, sir. Hang on a second.
My concern is, if we're going to have a meeting to discuss usage of the field, let's talk about usage of the field, not complaints about the process. We understand that there are some things that are upsetting to folks in the process, but if this meeting was designed to talk about usage and concerns of usage, let's keep it to that. I am sympathetic to the taxpayers who feel they're being treated unfairly. But I'm also a taxpayer, and I represent thousands of children. And I think those children deserve to have a quality facility. We have a $105 million school, and we're operating in our athletic facility like we're in the 1950s with porta-johns. That's not efficient. That's not who we are. And so in terms of integrity to this process, I think we've got to make sure that we control the language that occurs here. It's offensive for us to come here to talk about usage, and we get more critique of what they think is going on. And quite honestly, you don't get a cross-section of how people really feel because 2 or 3 people talk for 10, 15 minutes. That's unfair. And so let's have some integrity in the process by sticking to the agenda.
Thank you. And also, folks, just another thing real quick. There's been some comments about school-wide. This is for T.C. Williams. Right now, we bus children across the city. Freshman teams have to go across the city to use one facility. Sophomore team has to go somewhere else to use something. It's a burden on the parents. What we're trying to do is we've got a facility here. We want to improve that facility. We're not looking around other sites that we don't even own and trying to come up with something citywide. We're trying to create a T.C. Williams facility that is for our students that might have some supplementary uses for the community. So if everyone will, before they leave, give us what you wrote down on the papers, we would appreciate it. And thank you very much for coming, and we will be sending something out in the near future about further community meetings. Thank you. Excuse me, folks. There was a mention of lights at Chinkapin Park. That is, I'm sorry? Right, the city is here, and they did say that they would look into that. That is not the school, but they will look into that, and it might be a timer issue, as I mentioned. Thank you.